Have you ever liked a show, game, or movie so much that you want to own your favorite characters as marketable vinyl figures? I sure have, and if you clicked on this, you have too. But where do you start? Sure, there are Funko Pops, but what if you want something more? Like a duck. Well, this video is here to help. For simplicity, we'll be taking a hands-on look at Funko Pops, Nendoroids, Tubbz, and YouTooz based on their presentation and build quality. Let's start with Funko. First, did you know they used to make figures other than Pops? Yeah, they used to make licensed figures that actually looked unique. I still have a few of these from my brony phase. We all have regrets. Funko also had the Funko Force line, the precursor to Pop figures. At San Diego Comic-Con 2010, they debuted the Funko Force 2.0 line, originally representing a handful of DC characters. Once the figures officially hit store shelves in 2011, however, switching from a clamshell package to a box, Pop vinyls really took off and became the modern Beanie Babies that we all know and some of us love. Although I'm not too fond of the minimalist mold and its soulless eyes, I do still have a few, though my collection is pretty selective. When they're not forced on you anyway. There are many flavors of Pop figures, but for the sake of your sanity, we're sticking with the basic type. So here's the sort of Funko figure that you'll encounter in pretty much any retail store. The box itself emphasizes the figure. You have this window that goes across two sides. The box is also white, but with some flavor from the property that it's based on. And on the back, of course, they advertise all of the different Funko figures that you can get from this particular line, at least up to that point. I do have figures from stuff that I like Metallica, but I usually prefer to get figures that are unusual for Funko. For example, Lord Conti from Fooly Cooly. He still has that chibi aesthetic with a larger head and smaller body. Unlike the other Fooly Cooly characters here, he's forced to retain his TV head, which makes it a lot more visually interesting, at least to me. A couple other examples would be Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is forced to be shaped like Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Laserbeak, which is forced to be the same size and shape as the Transformers Laserbeak. Of course, for the sake of comparison, we're also going to take a closer look at one of the figures. For example, as you can see here, I did the blasphemous thing and opened this D100 Oswald Lucky Rabbit. So this is the Oswald figure itself. He has the Funko aesthetic of larger head, smaller body, and he's very minimalist with a lack of expression except for these soulless eyes. This one has head articulation. I don't know if all of them do, but that's pretty neat. With a clear base. Since this is a vinyl figure, the construction feels pretty solid. I don't feel like it's going to snap in my hand. I also feel some texture on the pants. Overall, I feel like if you're going to pay for a Funko Pop, you're at least getting a decently constructed figure. I am not a vinyl or resin figure expert, but while this does feel like a decent build quality in my hand, the main reason you would buy a Funko figure like this is because no one else will represent it, or at least not in a way that's affordable for you. For example, Disney doesn't really make their own Oswald figure, so you're kind of stuck with this. Or there's probably a more expensive Lord Conti figure somewhere out there, but this is a lot more affordable. Now, something else Funko likes to do is variants. For example, for Oswald, they did a variant where it's Oswald in the D100 color. And on the subject of variants, that is exactly the reason why, even though Deadpool is my favorite Marvel character, I do not own a single Deadpool Funko Pop, because it's like if you see how many Deadpool Pops they've come out with, or Deadpool variant Pops, it feels like it'll just go on forever and ever, and that would just be too expensive. The only one I do have is the Pop Ride, where it's the Chimichanga truck. That's different. One of the biggest appeals of this line, of course, is not just the breadth of properties represented, but the low barrier to entry. For only $12 to $15, you too can be a collector. Or an investor. Perhaps you want something a little more exotic. Here we have Tubbz, a series of figures first introduced by Numbskull in 2019, where your favorite characters from various games, shows, and movies are represented as rubber ducks. Some of them are cursed, but plenty actually translate rather nicely or are too perfect not to come in bath toy form. Why does tofu look so endearing in this style? Though they have different sizes, they have two main styles. First edition, which comes in a tub, and box edition, which comes in a box. I don't have any first editions, but I do have a couple boxed ones. Now right away, one big difference from Funko Pops is that the Tubbz boxes are more horizontal to better accommodate the duck within. And it's themed a bit more after the property. In this case, both Metal Gear Solid has the camo pattern because of the stealth in it, or tactical espionage action. One warning is that it's not a bath toy. Future me should put in a Kadikarus clip. I'm sure I know the one I'm talking about.
I like these things, but why can't you use them in the bath? I mean, look, they even have the hole. You know, that bit. The hole! Every water toy has a hole. You know, the hole!
Now, just like we did with the Funko Pops, we're going to take a closer look at one of these. Removing the merchant wasn't that difficult, but the results, I think, was worth it. It feels still kind of like a bath toy to some extent. You can even slightly squeeze this, but it's a pretty solid construction, so you do feel like you're getting your money's worth there. Compared to the Oswald, there's some more deliberate texture work, like difference with the merchant's robe versus like his backpack or the pouches and ammo, or even his mask. Of course, you can see the attention to detail there, including the tattered robe, so that's pretty neat. I don't know how well my phone camera is capturing this, but it's not perfect. There's a couple places where I think the plastic rubbed off a little bit of the paint, which isn't too much of a deal breaker because it's against the plastic a lot. That's something to keep in mind. Of course, because it's the bath toy aesthetic, the amount of detail in places like the pouches and ammo or the buckles aren't as high as they may be in a more premium collectible figure. If you compare this to something like a regular bath toy, it definitely feels like a premium bath toy, and I think if you like the duck aesthetic, that's what would matter the most. So I don't regret picking this one up, but I don't know how much I would get more in the future unless it's something that I think really works with the rubber duck style. First edition Tubbz will normally set you back about $25, but if you wait for a box reprint, it's only about $20. Honestly, not a bad price for a gimmick collectible, and I'm not sure I'd go any higher. But maybe you don't want ducks. If something closer to a Funko could be appeals more to you, look no further than YouTooz. This figure line, also from 2019, started by representing various internet personalities and memes before branching out to numerous media properties. This style is closer to Funko Pops, but apart from actually looking more like the thing they're based on, one big difference is that instead of the soulless eyes, they typically have faces meant to emulate a smile. Even if they're not smiling, the figures still incorporate the trademark eye shape in there somehow. Personally, I didn't think many figures looked good in this art style, but I did grab a couple that did. I wanted to point out first that these two are packaged a little bit differently. All of them come in an O-ring, but the regular Roxanne Wolf has one that completely covers the figure, whereas the Ruined Roxy does go all the way around, but it still has kind of a window so you can see inside. Like with the Funko, the window goes across two sides, and I like this flavor on the back here. Compared to Funko Pops, this is closer to Tubbz in that the entire box is themed around the character. Now, what's a little weird to me about the Ruined Roxy is that even though she does not have eyes, she still has the YouTooz eyes in there, and that YouTooz smile expression that's on a lot of them. Just, you know, it feels like taking off the O-ring. The O-ring on top is kind of like a window on top of the box window. That's kind of good because then it has more structural integrity than an O-ring without the plastic part would be. But I do honestly still like this O-ring that completely covers it. Get a nice flavor there. It's not just advertising whatever else is there. Probably because you're only going to buy one of these at a time. Unless we have Jenny. I was surprised to see My Life as a Teenage Robot legacy support after all this time. So this was very neat to get. That looks like nice flavor. Just like the Funko Pops and the Tubbz, we're going to take a closer look at the figure itself. So this is Jenny, and she wasn't too hard to remove from the box. I didn't show us with the Tubbz, but it's kind of the same thing, where it's 3 pieces that are joined together like this. Funko Pops are also similar. Difference is Jenny also had this extra little bit of plastic here, and the Tubbz did not. This actually feels like it matches the price point. Good attention to detail. She has a simpler design compared to like Roxy, but I mean she still came out pretty well, and the paint applications are a bit more accurate than on the Tubbz, which was a little limited by the rubber duck aesthetic, and it's a little more deliberately placed. Everything looks very even. You can tell they have a good quality control process. The only thing is maybe this black part on the bottom of the foot there, but that's pretty minor with the rest of the figure. One thing I want to point out is that she still kind of has the YouTooz expression, but it looks more like a smirk based on her expression, so it's incorporated a lot more naturally. So I appreciate that sort of like breaking the mold thing with a figure line like this. And of course she can do this superhero pose. As far as I can tell, these are pretty high quality figures, and if I was interested in any other characters, I might do it. But I feel a lot more selective with YouTooz just because of that trademark expression. I am personally satisfied with this. Oh, one last thing, if you lift up the flap, you get another quote. YouTooz also come at a higher price point, typically going for $30 if you buy them online when they come out. They tend to lean more on FOMO though, so keep that in mind if you don't want to potentially pay higher secondhand values. They even have a mechanism for reselling for what it's worth. Above YouTooz, however, we have our last collectible line, the one and only Nendoroid. These have been around the longest, first arriving back in 2006, and are a Japanese line by Good Smile that represents various media in a chibi style, but now they're made of plastic. The main appeal of this line isn't the material though, it's the fact that you can exchange body parts and facial expressions and pose them in just about any way you want. They even sell additional accessories separately. I actually have a good number of these, including the entire Helltaker line, but I've still been pretty selective. I'll get to why in a bit, but first, let's take a closer look. So this is actually the first Nendoroid I ever got, which was Lucifer from Helltaker. I really liked Helltaker, so when I saw that there was a Nendoroid, I thought it was a good way to financially support the creator. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. So I have the entire line. This is the box, and while it is white, what's different about this is that the window is solely on the front, because it's emphasizing not only the figure, so imagine her encased in there, but also all the different optional parts. And the box is otherwise themed around the character, and instead of trying to sell you on more, it's trying to sell you on this particular one by showing you all the cool things you can do with all these optional parts. They all come with a base and an arm for placement and posing. You can move every part. Pretty much every part is removable, including her tail right here. I'll admit, the way you remove the plastic initially, I was a little worried that I messed up the tail on my Modius, but fortunately nothing bad came from that. What's also cool about Nendoroids is that some of them have neat pre-order bonuses, like this is the one for Lucifer. This lets you have her guards with her if you really want to do that. This is a stand to help prop that up. So what I also like about Nendoroids is that it really feels like a premium posable collectible figure. It's made of plastic, but it's a very solid plastic. You notice the chibi style where it's larger head, smaller body. It pretty much perfectly resembles the character. Like, there's a lot of attention to detail with like her pin, her suit, even her horns and crown. Even got her ponytail here, and like I showed earlier, her tail. And then all these other optional parts also show some attention to detail with the source material, like her glass or the pancakes, plus utensil hands. There are also some original figures like River here. I like that this particular one also has this leaf pattern if you look at it in the right light, which makes it stand out. In case you're curious, this is an optional parts set, so like more expressions and other things you can do with River. Those are some neat releases, like the Cerberus triple set, which is 3 copies of Cerberus, which was cool to me because the gimmick with Cerberus is that it's 3 bodies that share 1 mind. So being able to get 3 in a set like this is more efficient than buying 3 separate ones at a time. Most recent Nendoroid in my collection, and maybe the last one, depending on how certain economic factors pan out, is Pomni from the Amazing Digital Circus. You can see this one is also themed a lot more after Pomni, by having her color scheme prominently on the box. I like this series, so this was a good way to support it. And since this is still sealed, and you actually kind of need to open your Nendoroid so the plastic doesn't get kind of weird after a while, I figured we'd all take a look at the same time. Try to be careful with how I open these because it usually results in some kind of dip here, but it might be unavoidable here. We got Pomni here with her optional parts and instructions, which are naturally in Japanese, but there's also an English version on the inside, so that's very helpful. The base is usually taped to the bottom layer. Special base here. Removing the plastic felt a little more difficult with Pomni than it did with the other Nendoroids. But I think that's more because she has an unusual body compared to Lucifer. Now that Pomni has been freed from one prison, you can still make her do whatever you'd like. At first I designed this particular box so that you could make the inside cardboard background, and you can also remove this and make it the exit door, which is pretty creative, I must say. I would normally just keep the figure like this for now and maybe change a couple things, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to do something you probably want to see her do. She is now attempting to swear, but thanks to this handy censor bar, she cannot. Although removing Pomni from her prison, if you will, was a little more painful than it was for a character like Lucifer, I still like how this came out. High quality and good attention to detail, very good paint applications. Oh, maybe that's a little bit of an overlap there. I don't know how much of that is the manufacturing process. Apart from maybe some slight imperfections like that, it's very impressive. The eyes also feel like a slightly different texture from the rest of her face, which I think is kind of fitting for how prominent her eyes are. I don't have too much to complain about with the Pomni, and I do not regret this purchase. Now, although these Nendoroids do feel like premium figures, they can also be a little fragile at the same time. Not like it's gonna break in my hand. If you're just not careful with how you display or store your figures, you're probably not gonna have a good time. Also, holding Pomni more, she in particular feels more top heavy. That's probably owing to her hat here, which is Eternal. Removing this piece here is how you would change the face. There are one or two Nendoroids that I have where I was worried if I put too much force on that I was going to break it, so I didn't change any of the faces out. It's probably a me thing, but just something to keep in mind. Otherwise, I think you do actually get your money's worth with these. Now, the thing about Nendoroid pricing is that it fluctuates a bit depending on license and complexity. Based on my own experience, expect to pay at least $40 to $50 unless it's a sale or something really simple. There's also the possibility of buying a counterfeit Nendoroid, so I'd either look up a guide before buying one or just buy directly from the manufacturer or an approved seller. So after all of that, is there one that you should buy? Well, I'm not going to tell you what to buy. They all fill a different niche, and that's okay. If you want my personal opinion, I prefer the Nendoroids because of all the customization and articulation, but I know that it doesn't appeal to everyone. In any case, I hope this video was helpful to you in some way, whether you're already collecting or just getting started. Until we meet again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to look for tofu.